Hey, welcome to episode 10 of the reviews. Continue with BJCP style guidelines. We are still on those wacky specialty beer styles. We're on style 29B, fruit and spice beer. Now there's an introduction to it. You can read that if you want, but it basically says the word spice does not imply only spices can be used. Any spice, herb, or vegetable from category 30 may be used. Overall impression, a harmonious marriage of fruit, spice, and beer, but still recognizable as a beer. The fruit and spice character should be evident but in balance with the beer, not so forward as to suggest an artificial product. In other words, basically, it's not a flavored malt beverage or an alcohol pop or anything like that. So, for this style, I got this, I think it's a kind of special beer. This is Terrapin's Raspberry Truffle Wake and Bake Coffee Oatmeal Imperial Stout. All right, so let's check the comments history. Well, there is no history, and this is interesting. There's no characteristic ingredients either, just comments, entry instructions, and vitals. So the comments is kind of long on here. If you drop about down halfway, it says, whenever fruit, spices, herbs, or vegetables are declared, each should be noticeable and distinctive in its own way, although not necessarily individually identifiable. Balance with the other ingredients is still critical. In other words, the beer should read as a spice fruit beer, but without having to tell that specific fruits and spices are present, even if declared. And they're saying the entrant must specify base style, which is why I got this one because they're calling it Imperial Stout. So we'll do 20C Imperial Stout as the base style. And your vitals, I mean, it says, depending on the underlying base beer, the fruit will often be reflected in the color, which we'll probably get to in a sec when we get to the appearance section. So let's dive in here. Wow. I'm getting three things at once, which I should. So I'm getting like big Imperial Stout, like the roasty, the dark malt, things like that. But I'm also getting plenty of coffee on here. And that raspberry is there, and it smells very authentic, like raspberry jam, raspberry puree. It doesn't smell like it's just some kind of extract syrup flavoring. Oh, and there's a lovely kind of a chocolatey thing too. So it's chocolate, stout, raspberry, coffee. Wow. I think it's hard to say which one dominates. I think the raspberry. Now that I'm paying attention to it, and I do this a lot in my reviews, is now that I'm paying attention to it, I think the raspberry does dominate. But the coffee and the chocolate and the stout base, they're all right there. So it's really well balanced, and I can tell that it's a strong beer. I mean, it's not there's nothing like boozy about it, but there is just like a little bit of an alcohol character there to let you know that it's kind of strong, but it's very clean. All right, so let's check specs on aroma. This is very quite long. The distinctive aromatics associated with the declared fruit and spices should be noticeable in the aroma. However, note that some fruit and some spices have stronger aromas and are more distinctive than others. Allow for a range of fruit and spice character and intensity from subtle to aggressive. The additional aromatics should blend well with whatever aromatics are appropriate for the declared base beer style. The hop aroma may be absent or balanced depending on the declared base style. I am quite tempted to give this a full 12 out of 12. I'm going to say 11. If I had to give that a 12, I could. Appearance, I'm not sure how this is picking up on camera. I mean, it probably looks black, but when I was pouring it, it's actually like this extremely deep shade of purple or violet or whatever you want to call it from the raspberry. So it's almost like a really, really dark red wine. And it did have a nice, 2-3 fingers of foam there. So I don't even need to do this. I'm just going to, 44 SRM, something like that. And no chunks or sediment or anything like that. So lovely looking stout beer. Let's see what it should look like on appearance. Appearance should be appropriate for the declared base beer style and declared fruit and spices. Well, it absolutely is. For lighter colored beers with fruit or spices that exhibit distinctive colors, the color should be noticeable. Note that the color of fruit and beer is often lighter than the flesh of the fruit itself and may take on slightly different shades. May have some haze or be clear, although haze is generally undesirable. The head may take on some of the color of the fruit and spice. That's true. Like a lot of like if you did a Kolsch with raspberry, it'd be like a pink or purple kind of colored beer. Blueberry too. All right, so I'm going to go a full 3 out of 3 on appearance there. No reason not to. All right, so I can't wait to dig into this. Cheers. So, the raspberry up front, very kind of sweet, fruity flavor. Underlying milk chocolatey thing. So, chocolate and raspberry obviously going to go really well together. It's like a liquid dessert. Then once you kind of hit the apex, you get the coffee flavor and coffee bitters. I think the coffee is actually probably doing more for the bitterness here than the hops. Which isn't to say the hops are completely absent. It's just that the coffee is, I'd probably say it's about moderate. I wouldn't say it's super strong. You know, I've had like some coffee bomb beers, like, you know, Southern Tier Java or something like that. This is a much more subtle kind of coffee thing. As far as like the oatmeal and the base stout, which tends to give you like a lot of roasty things, I think it's getting a little obscured from the raspberry and chocolate and coffee, but that's okay. It's not completely gone. Chocolate and raspberry, yeah, but adding coffee to it, you wouldn't think that would work, but it does. So the coffee is just kind of giving like this slight kind of bitterness to it, just like a slight bonus flavor. I guess it's supposed to be. I mean, they're calling it, you know, wake and bake. So it's kind of like if you were having like, you know, something chocolate and raspberry flavored for breakfast with a side of coffee. The base stout really comes out like in the aftertaste, like it's a lingering, dark, roasty thing. So I think it's that roastiness there is much more, you know, in my just from my experience, it's that imperial stout kind of after flavor, not really the coffee after flavor. And the raspberries there throughout almost the entire thing. I notice it, you know, I notice up front it kind of disappears for a moment there, and then on the finish comes back with just like a little bit of a tartness to it. I'm really, really amazed at the balance of this beer and that they were able to pull it off. As far as the alcohol, it's you know, it's 9.4. It doesn't seem quite that strong. This seems more like a 7 or 8% beer. The alcohol really isn't doing much as far as flavor. It's just kind of boosting the intensity of all. But like I said with the aroma, it's very, very clean. So it's not like fusel or rubbing alcohol or solventy or anything like that. So let's check the specs on flavor. Wow, this is long. Flavor. As with aroma, the distinctive flavor character associated with the declared fruits and spices should be noticeable. It may range in intensity from subtle to aggressive. Yeah, the fruit's definitely on the aggressive end here. The balance of fruit and spices of the underlying beer is vital, and the fruit character should not be so artificial and or inappropriately overpowering as to suggest a spiced fruit drink. Absolutely not. That's exactly what I said. Hop bitterness flavor, malt flavors, alcohol content, and fermentation byproducts such as esters should be appropriate to the base beer and be harmonious and balanced with the distinctive fruit and spice flavors present. Totally is. That's what I just said in the last few minutes. Remember that fruit generally add flavor, not sweetness. Yeah, it does add a little bit of sweetness in here. I would not say it's cloying, but yeah, it's a little sweet when you taste that raspberry. The sugar found in fruit is usually fully fermented and contributes to lighter flavors and a drier finish than might be expected for the declared base style. But I mean, it's also an imperial stout, so you know it's going to be kind of, you know, pretty rich beer. It's not like a bone dry saison or something like that. However, residual sweetness is not necessarily a negative characteristic unless it has a raw, unfermented quality. Some SHVs are inherently bitter and may result in a beer more bitter than the declared base style. You know, I wouldn't say this is any more bitter than a normal imperial stout. In fact, it's probably like a little less bitter, but that balance there, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like the most delicious beer I've ever had in the world, but just the flavor combinations and that they were able to make it work. Really, really impressive. Again, I'm tempted to go the full 20 out of 20 on this. I think I'm going to say 19. Mouthfeel. What's going on with that? It's even though it's 9.4 ABV and it's Imperial Stout, so you would think it'd be, you know, motor oil or whatever. It's not. It's probably closer to like a medium full body. Very, very smooth. The alcohol in this, it's very, very. It's subtle. There's a tiny little bit of a warming sensation, but it's very, very drinkable. This is only a 500 ml bottle. I'm not going to have any problem destroying this whole thing right now. Even if it was 22 ounces, it would be no problem either. So, you know, high drinkability, lovely texture, and it's just for an imperial stout. It does have the carbonation and the body that you want in an imperial stout. Maybe just a tiny little bit thinner, but again, that's actually understandable when you have the sugars from all that. So let's check the specs on mouthfeel. Mouthfeel may vary depending on the base beer selected and as appropriate to that base beer. Body and carbonation level should be appropriate to declare base beer style. This is exactly. Fruit generally adds fermentables that tend to thin out the beer. That's exactly what I just said. The resulting beer may seem lighter than expected for the declared base style. Okay, so understandable. Some SHVs may add additional body, though fermentable additions may thin out the beer. Some SHVs may add an astringency, although a raw spice character is undesirable. Yeah, so it's banging on all cylinders. I'm going to give that a full 5 out of 5 on mouthfeel. Overall impression, I'm going to go a full 10 out of 10. I think this is a outstanding world-class beer, one of the most interesting One of the most interesting beers I've ever had, and probably one of the best beers I've had so far this year. Total score of 48 out of 50. I probably could give it a full 50 out of 50. It kind of reminds me of something that Cigar City would do. But, let's just stick with that. It's very rare that I do. So there you go. 48 out of 50. Well, maybe it would help if I turn the label towards the camera. 48 out of 50 for Raspberry Truffle Wake and Bake Coffee Oatmeal Imperial Stout. Kind of mad at Terrapin for selling out to Big Beer, but really amazed that they were able to do this, because this is not the kind of beer that the Big Beer buyer tends to get. So it's for people like us. All right, so I'm going very long. Thanks for watching. You are awesome. Cheers.
Somebody brewed it. Chad just reviewed it. Thanks for watching Chad's Beer Reviews. Trust me, the next episode will be a lot better.